Imagine carrying an object so powerful that for thousands of years only kings and gods were allowed to hold one over their heads. An object so loaded with status that in ancient Egypt, China, and Mesopotamia, it was literally illegal for a commoner to shade themselves with one. That object is your umbrella, the same thing you grab on a drizzly Tuesday morning without a second thought. Today, we are tracing the 4,000-year journey of the umbrella, from sacred symbol of divine power to a tool no self-respecting Victorian man would dare be caught holding.
Our story begins in ancient Egypt, around 1200 BCE. The earliest known depictions of umbrella-like canopies appear in carvings and paintings, but they weren't for rain. Egypt is a desert kingdom. The sun is the enemy. And the Pharaoh, the living god, needed to be shielded from its glare to signal his divine nature. The canopy held over the Pharaoh's head literally meant, "This man is closer to the heavens." The sunshade carriers were high-ranking officials. Dropping the canopy was considered a mortal insult. The umbrella was not protection. It was a declaration of who you were in the cosmic order. Simultaneously, in Mesopotamia and Persia, Assyrian kings depicted in battle reliefs always had a servant holding a fringed parasol above them, even in the middle of a war. The umbrella went to war with the king.
But here is what is strange, and this is the part most history books skip entirely. The umbrella didn't travel west from these ancient empires. It traveled east, all the way to China. And what happened there would set off a chain reaction that would eventually land the umbrella in the hands of a very confused Victorian gentleman who had absolutely no idea what to do with it. In ancient China, the umbrella became one of the most politically loaded objects in the empire. By the Zhou dynasty, around 1000 BCE, its use was codified by law. The number of tiers on your ceremonial umbrella told everyone exactly how important you were. The emperor himself got 4 tiers, nobles got 3, high officials got 2, commoners, none. Showing up with an umbrella above your station was not just rude, it was an act of treason. And color mattered too. Yellow was the emperor's color, sacred and untouchable. Red was for nobility. Entire families could be punished for the wrong shade of silk canopy. What makes China's umbrella tradition remarkable is that it lasted for centuries and slowly evolved a second function. As Chinese engineers adapted the collapsible bamboo frame, the parasol became genuinely waterproof by oiling the paper covering. Rain protection was almost an accident. But the umbrella's journey west was about to take a deeply strange detour through India and a religious debate that nearly kept the umbrella out of Europe entirely. In ancient India, the ceremonial umbrella was one of the 8 auspicious symbols of Buddhism. The Buddha himself was traditionally depicted with a multi-tiered white umbrella over his head, representing his spiritual authority over multiple realms of existence. As Buddhism spread across Southeast Asia, so did the umbrella. Every Buddhist king, from Sri Lanka to Burma to Thailand, adopted the tiered ceremonial umbrella as a marker of divine kingship. Even today, Thai royal ceremonies feature multi-tiered white and gold umbrellas, a direct 2,500-year-old lineage from ancient Indian Buddhist iconography. But here was the problem. When early European missionaries arrived in Asia and encountered this universal umbrella symbolism, some of them were alarmed. The umbrella was so tightly bound to pagan ritual and divine kingship that certain Catholic missionaries debated whether accepting or using one made you complicit in idol worship. The umbrella became a theological flashpoint. Meanwhile, back in the Mediterranean, the Romans and Greeks had their own parasol tradition, but they were much more pragmatic about it. The Roman umbraculum was a lady's accessory. Men did not use them. That association, umbrella equals feminine, would haunt Western culture for the next 1,500 years. After the fall of Rome, the umbrella essentially vanished from Western Europe. For nearly 1,000 years, there is almost no record of everyday umbrella use. Kings occasionally had ceremonial canopies at coronations and processions, but the portable personal umbrella? Gone. So who brought it back? And why did it come back as a rain tool when it had always been a sun tool everywhere else in the world? The answer involves a Frenchman, a Portuguese trade route, and a London shopkeeper who became the most ridiculed man in England, but who would ultimately win. The umbrella began its European comeback in Renaissance Italy in the late 1500s. Italian artists had access to Asian goods through trade, and the Italian aristocracy had a taste for exotic luxury items. The parasol arrived as a fashionable ladies' accessory, still for sun protection, still gendered feminine. Catherine de' Medici, the Italian noblewoman who became Queen of France in 1547, is often credited with bringing the parasol into French high society. By the late 1500s, the French court had embraced the parasol as an aristocratic ladies' accessory. The French word for the sunshade version, parasol, comes from the Italian parare, meaning to shield, and sole, meaning sun. The rain version, parapluie, follows the same logic, pluie, meaning rain. Both words entered English, and that linguistic divide between parasol and umbrella was about to become a cultural battlefield. England in the early 1700s had no word for the rain umbrella because England had no rain umbrella, which seems almost offensive given that Britain is one of the rainiest countries in Europe. So what were the English doing in the rain? Mostly getting wet. Enter Jonas Hanway. In 1750, Jonas Hanway, a British merchant and philanthropist who had spent years traveling through Persia and Russia, walked the streets of London carrying an umbrella. And London lost its mind. For the next 30 years, Hanway persistently walked London's streets with his umbrella. He was mocked relentlessly. Pamphlets were written about him. Coachmen jeered at him, because if people could stay dry under their own personal shelter, why would they hire a sedan chair or a hackney carriage? Hanway was threatening the livelihood of the rain-dependent transport industry. But there was an even deeper problem than economics. In Britain, as in ancient Rome, the umbrella was a woman's object. A man carrying one was considered effeminate, unmanly, possibly French. In Georgian England, being accused of being French was essentially a personality death sentence. Hanway died in 1786, still carrying his umbrella. By then, public opinion had very slowly begun to shift. The umbrella was gradually becoming acceptable, but only just. And even then, only for respectable middle-class men. The aristocracy still preferred not to be seen with one.
But the real Victorian umbrella scandal, the one that almost split British society, came 50 years later. And it was not about class. It was about who had the right to be seen carrying one at all. By the 1820s and 1830s, the umbrella had gone mainstream. James Smith and Sons opened their London umbrella shop in 1830. They are still there today. Mass production was making umbrellas affordable for the middle class, and new materials, steel ribs replacing whalebone, made them lighter and more durable. A key innovation. Samuel Fox invented the steel-ribbed umbrella frame in 1852, the Paragon frame. This made umbrellas dramatically more practical, lighter, more reliable, and crucially, cheaper. The umbrella was democratizing, and that is where the problem started.
When umbrellas were expensive, they were status symbols. Owning one marked you as respectable. As they became affordable, the middle classes panicked. If everyone could have an umbrella, how could you tell a respectable person from a fraud?
Victorian etiquette manuals began drawing increasingly absurd distinctions. The proper gentleman's umbrella was tightly rolled and carried vertically, never opened in light rain. A gentleman took a cab. Opening your umbrella was considered slightly common. Carrying it loose or unfurled was the mark of a person of lower station. But the biggest controversy was simpler than class anxiety. By the 1840s, umbrella use by men had become so normalized that certain conservative commentators erupted. They argued that male umbrella use was a corruption of British manliness imported from the continent. "No true Englishman needs shelter from rain," wrote one indignant columnist in 1847. The letters pages of the Times ran with umbrella debates for years. Here is the twist no one saw coming. The very group most vocally opposed to men carrying umbrellas ended up being the group that made umbrella carrying the definitive mark of British masculine respectability. And it all happened because of one man's fashion choices. Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband and a deeply fashion-conscious man, was seen regularly with an umbrella in the 1840s and 1850s. When the Prince Consort carries an umbrella, the argument about manliness collapses almost overnight. By the 1860s, the tightly furled black umbrella was not just acceptable for British men, it was expected. The uniform of the gentleman, the calling card of respectability.
And here is the remarkable irony. An object that began as a symbol of divine imperial power in ancient Egypt and China had become the universal symbol of the British middle-class gentleman. The bowler hat and the tightly rolled umbrella became the global shorthand for British person for the next 100 years. The 20th century saw umbrella technology explode. Telescoping folding umbrellas appeared in the 1920s. Hans Haupt patented a folding model in Berlin in 1928. Nylon replaced silk and paper. Wind-resistant canopies. Automatic open-close mechanisms. The umbrella had become a mass-produced consumer commodity in every country on Earth. But cultural attitudes diverged wildly. In Japan, the umbrella became almost sacred again. The Japanese have some of the highest per capita umbrella ownership rates in the world. Umbrella sharing programs exist at train stations. Leaving a wet umbrella anywhere inappropriate is a social faux pas. In America, the umbrella remained slightly uncool. The hat was always preferred, and the umbrella was seen as slightly European. And then there is the strangest chapter of all in umbrella history. 1978, London. Georgy Markov, a Bulgarian dissident, was waiting at a bus stop on Waterloo Bridge. A stranger bumped into him with an umbrella tip. He felt a brief sting. He was dead within days. Assassinated with a ricin pellet fired from the tip of an umbrella converted into a weapon. The Bulgarian Secret Service had used the most British of objects to commit a Cold War murder in the heart of London. 4,000 years after the Pharaohs used it as a symbol of divine protection, the umbrella had become a literal weapon of state assassination. The object that once marked the boundary between the sacred and the profane had blurred every boundary it ever crossed. Think about what your umbrella says about you right now. Compact fold-up in your bag, you are practical, prepared, slightly anxious about the weather. A full-size golf umbrella, you are claiming space, Victorian-style dominance. A clear dome umbrella, you want rain protection, but also want to see where you are going. Even now, 4,000 years on, the umbrella is making a social statement, whether you like it or not. From the Pharaohs' sacred canopy to Jonas Hanway's ridiculous walk through London,
to a Cold War assassination on Waterloo Bridge, the humble umbrella has been a status symbol, a scandal, a weapon, and a fashion statement. It is one of the most politically loaded objects in human history, and most of us grab it without thinking on a drizzly Tuesday morning. If you want more hidden history hiding in plain sight, the objects we use every day with absolutely no idea what they have been through, subscribe to The Becoming a One. New history drops every Monday and Thursday. The next one is going to make you look at something even more familiar in a completely different way.